Hello everyone, welcome back to Drama Fan. It seems that in the finale of the episode, everything Yezuk said will happen. So it was Donwal who had decided to drink the blood of his father, Detective Kwan. He will rise from the well and will close Ulte's dark hole. After that, Detective Kwan will tell Donwal that Songun has been chased by Ulte. So Donwal will rush over there soon. At the same time, Songun will try to stab Ulte with a knife hidden behind her body. However, Songun can be stopped by Ulte. Ulte will remember his first meeting with Songun, who is a Bulgasal. It seems that in the past, Ulte found out about Bulgasal when he met Songun while trying to kill his brother. It is possible that at that time, Donwal and Songun coexisted with humans, which is Ziho, Doyun, and Yezuk. Like now, they lived in a village led by Detective Kwan, who was Ulte's father at that time. And when he first met Songun, there was someone behind Songun. There is a possibility that this person is Ziho. So they were close like sisters. When Ulte tried to harm them, Songun had to use her power to protect Ziho. Because of this, Ulte will be curious about her, who has a great strength unlike him. Ulte will follow Songun to her residence and will realize that they were living in the same village. Ulte will find out until he can come to the conclusion that Donwal and Songun are Bulgasal like the rumors said. That is a monster that eats humans and cannot die. Maybe at some point, Ulte overhears Donwal and Songun's conversation about them who can die when their hearts are stabbed together. So Ulte will take advantage of that and make Ziho and Doyun not to trust Songun and Donwal, because they are dangerous and they are not human, but Bulgasal who eat people. Meanwhile, he will also report to his father, Detective Kwan, who leads the village, if Bulgasal killed his brother, and if Bulgasal exists. The Bulgasal are Donwal and Songun who live in their village. Those who believe in it seek to kill them. But Songun cannot die, and Donwal can kill everyone because he is Bulgasal. But at the last moment, he is stabbed by Detective Kwan, and followed by Ziho and Doyun. Donwal can't do anything because Songun stabs herself. So the two of them, Donwal and Songun, will die. It seems Songun is doing this because she likes humans and has high sympathy for them, where Songun must also think of them as family. But Donwal feels betrayed that Songun has chosen them over him. Donwal decides to take Ulte's soul and will reincarnate as human and ask Ulte to find him and turn him into Bulgasal. He wants to become Bulgasal again because he wants Songun to be his. On the other hand, Ulte didn't think that he would have a dark hole. Maybe by saving Donwal, he hopes to find out how to become Bulgasal. Back to Ulte and Songun in the present. After that, Ulte will slap Songun until she falls here. Donwal will save Songun. After that, Songun will ask Donwal how Detective Kwan is doing, but Donwal refuses to speak. Because he didn't believe he had broken his promise not to drink human blood, but he instead drank his own father's blood. Donwal will approach Ulte and will immediately hit Ulte for hurting his family. Donwal will end Ulte by bringing him back to the well. This is where Ulte will find out that Donwal has drunk human blood. Ulte will tell Donwal that he can't turn back into a human because he already drank human blood. And because Donwal has drunk human blood, Ulte hopes that he will return to the old Bulgasal. So there will be no dark holes. I think Ulte made Donwal think that his decision to make Ulte half Bulgasal was wrong, since now everything turned out to be out of control. However, it seems that Donwal's strength has not fully returned until he will be defeated by Ulte again. Because it looks like Songun is screaming where the location is similar to the location of Donwal and Ulte when they are fighting here. And there is Ulte who is in the car. Looks like Ulte is trying to escape from Donwal. In my opinion, Ulte will be caught by Donwal again before he can escape. Maybe Donwal's condition hasn't fully stabilized since it was his first time drinking human blood. So he would definitely feel the difference in his body condition. And this time, maybe Donwal will bite Ulte's neck like what Ulte did to Donwal. In my opinion, there is a possibility that Donwal will have all his memories from the past because he has drunk human blood. So he will kill Ulte and himself to end all the suffering. Since Donwal wants to be human and live a normal life without his memory from the past. Because even if he lives, he will become Bulgasal, which means he will never die. And I don't think he would necessarily kill Songun to swap, so Donwal can turn into a human, and Songun will turn into Bulgasal. As they said before. Maybe after a few years Songun and Donwal will meet again. This time it's Songun who will look for Donwal. Since both Donwal and Songun can't live without each other. Then at that time Siho's son had grown up, and Doyun had continued his school. Maybe Doyun had graduated and was working by then. However, there might be a chance when Donwal tried to kill Ulte, but instead Donwal is still alive. Because Ulte is half Bulgasal, so maybe the outcome will be different. It can be Donwal is still alive, but he will become a normal human and age like everyone else too. That's it for this video. What do you think? Let me know what you think in the comments below. See you on the next video. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.